Sportscast May 7th, 2020. If you haven't yet, please subscribe in all our channels, Periscope, iTunes, and YouTube. And if you're in iTunes, please leave a rating and review. It will help us out tremendously. And, of course, visit us on thesportscast.net, thesportscast.net for the latest. This episode is brought to you by InstaBible app. Download InstaBible app on your iPhone and share verses to the world. The NFL draft happened after almost over a week. And one of the teams we're going to talk about today are the Steelers. The Steelers may not have had the most prolific NFL draft with only 6 players taken, but they were still able to address a few key areas. And joining us today to recap what the Pittsburgh Steelers did, Joe Tascano from Pittsburgh, and Sportscast contributor Justin Riley. Welcome to the Sportscast.
Good to be here.
Hey, Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
So, guys, Pittsburgh Steelers, one of our biggest followings in our Sportscast Twitter. We'll go with Justin first, then go Joe. Justin, we're going to recap each player, but overall, did the Steelers cover what they needed to do? Don't go too long. Go quick recap, and then we'll go in deep.
I'm actually kind of surprised you're going with me instead of the guest first, who lives and breathes Pittsburgh. But, I'll take it nonetheless. Yeah, like you said, the Steelers didn't really have many draft picks to speak of. So they had to do the best with what they had. And to be honest with you, there really wasn't a need, I felt, for a big splash in this draft. Really what they needed to do was just improve on depth. And based on their draft picks, that's essentially what they did. Now, true to form, what Joe told us last time we were on here together was they were not going quarterback, but I still held out that there's some possibility, albeit remote, that they may go quarterback. More importantly, they may go Jalen Hurts, but we know it didn't happen. He's with the Eagles flying high, and the Steelers did not even look towards a quarterback just as predicted. But it was definitely an interesting draft, and I feel like it was a smart draft by the Steelers.
Joe Toscano, give us your quick recap over the Pittsburgh Steelers. What are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a draft where they didn't really have any desperate needs. They addressed most of their needs in the offseason with free agents and trades. So they had the luxury of taking the quote-unquote best player available. This draft was so weird to predict and analyze because we knew so little about what the teams wanted and what we thought they would do. So, players that we thought might have been a reach or something like that may have been the players that the team really loved for whatever reason. So I think they did okay. But yeah, it was not a sexy draft, that's for sure.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, of course, they let go of, he gave up a few trade picks to the Miami Dolphins, and one of them was to deal their pick to Dolphins in order to acquire Minkah Fitzpatrick, which, it was a good take overall by Pittsburgh, which in our last show, Joe said that, which was a good addition to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's go to round number 2. Pittsburgh's first pick was in round number 2, and they chose Chase Claypool from Notre Dame. Joe, he's a great wide receiver. What have you heard from him, and how are you feeling with this pick?
Very interesting pick. I personally like it. He is Ben Roethlisberger likes tall wide receivers. So Claypool he's tall, he's big, he is fast. He is automatically the tallest and fastest wide receiver of on the Steelers right now. So he is I've heard him compared to Megatron, which is I think ridiculous, but still. Yeah, exactly. But I think the role he'll play early is just to be the deep threat. Just go downfield, stretch the field. So I think he'll play a lot his rookie year just to serve that role. But I really like that pick. in addition to being tall and fast and kind of big, I mean, he's also almost considered could be a tight end. He is tough. He's a combat catch guy, and he loves the block. He reminds me a lot of Hines Ward. He reminds me a lot of a tall, fast Hines Ward. And if he's anything like Hines Ward, Pittsburgh's going to love him.
Justin Riley, what have you heard about Chase Claypool, and is he a good addition for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
He is a great value pick, I feel, at that point in the draft. And I love, Joe, what you just said, that he is a combat receiver. This is a guy who does not shy away from physicality. He likes to dish it out because he can. And I think he's drawing those comparisons to Megatron just, I guess, from a physical aspect. Like you said, he's big, he's tall. He also has speed, and that's just a rare combination, having that big physical presence mixed with speed as well. And he's a guy who's going to help take pressure off of Juju Smith-Schuster. And like you said, he provides that deep threat. And it's going to cause the defenses to have to adjust and put their attention elsewhere. And, I mean, you kind of have to with a guy like that. And like we said, he is big. He's physical. He's got a guy who's going to win the one-on-one battles. He's going to win that 50-50 battle where he's going up for the catch. And this is a guy that basically finds a way literally every game to get a touchdown. You know, he's guaranteed almost at least one touchdown each game. So you got to be excited about that. You know, he's going to play on the outside, but he also has the ability to play in the slot if he needs to. So he's versatile. I think this is a great pick here. You know, some people have made mention that maybe going running back in this position in the draft probably would have been a good idea. But to be honest with you, drafting running back at that high probably wouldn't have been a good idea considering the running back room that the Steelers currently have, because you'd be bringing in kind of a high-profile pick at that point. So it really wouldn't have made sense to add another high-profile back in an already crowded backfield. I just think this is a great pick here, and you definitely get your big man another weapon.
Joe Tascano, Clay will be joining Juju Smith-Schuster. Is this a complete wide receiving squad?
It's a complete wide receiving squad. It's also a crowded wide receiving squad. It remains to be seen who all is going to play, because now you have Chase. You already had Juju. You already had Deontay Johnson, who was a draft pick last year, who had a very good rookie year. You had James Washington, who might be the odd man out. And then they also acquired Eric Ebron in free agency, and they already had Vance McDonald at tight end. So it remains to be seen who's going to who's going to play. That's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think it's a very young wide receiving group. And you know, Juju did not have a good year last year. It was a combination of bad quarterback play and injuries. So I think he'll have a bounce back year. Because he'll be playing with Ben Roethlisberger, and also he's extremely motivated to have a bounce back year because it's a contract year, and he's playing for that next contract.
Something to definitely look at. Our next pick is Alex Highsmith, linebacker from Charlotte. Joe, was this a huge pick for you guys?
It was, well, technically it's a third-round pick, but really it's almost close to a fourth-round pick. It is at the very end of the third round. This is what the Steelers do. They get a guy that was a defensive end in college, that was a pass rusher, and they try to make him an outside linebacker. They've done it many times throughout the years, so they're going to try to do this again. He has the physical characteristics of all those kind of players that the Steelers like. We'll see. I mean, to me, there's a couple red flags. For one, the small school thing scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, he was known for having a big game against Clemson, which is nice. I mean, you want him, when he has, goes up against big competition, you want him to have a good game. But the thing is, I am always scared of players that make themselves known because they had one good game. like, okay, you had one good game. What about the rest of your career? What about everything else? So we'll see. I don't think they expect much from him. They definitely aren't going to play him much this year because the Steelers signed Bud Dupree to the franchise tag. So they'll have Bud for at least this year, and we'll see whether they sign him to a long-term deal. So at the very least, he'll be a special teams contributor and, a backup to Bud Dupree and TJ Watt, and we'll see. But I don't expect much from him his rookie year.
Justin Riley, you're all about small schools. What have you heard about Alex Highsmith from Charlotte? And is Charlotte what division are they in?
Well, they're actually, I believe, in the Conference USA, which, is not a Power 5 school, and they're not going against the elite of competition. And right now, this pick here, I don't necessarily think the Steelers were going after a guy to come and start and be the guy. I really saw it as just a depth pick here. Someone this pretty solid who can play behind TJ Watt and Bud Dupree on the edge. He's got a really good story. This is a guy that actually was a former walk-on special teams guy, and he just kind of worked his way up. And he actually, his senior year, he had 15 sacks. He did it in a small conference, but 15 sacks is no easy task, so you kind of got to give the guy a little bit of credit. He's a guy that's long, he's fast, very athletic, has a tremendous upside. Will he be able to reach that and go somewhere with it? Will he be able to transfer into the next reincarnation of Kevin Green? We don't know. But Tomlin likes the guy, and he really enjoyed him through the whole process of getting to know him leading up to the draft. He's a solid technician and student of the game. I just think right now, don't expect a whole lot, like Joe said, his first year. And I think that he'll be a solid just contributor. And exactly how much, we'll see. But he's an athletic guy, and I think he can be someone who can make a difference, but just not as a starter.
Something to definitely look at. Of course, Joe said that he might be a special teams guy. But let's move on to round 4, a little bit later. We're still in the golden 4 is not that bad. They got another running back, Anthony McFarland Jr. Of course, the running back situation at Pittsburgh has been a question mark since Le'Veon Bell has left. James Conner hasn't had a good second or third year. Joe, is this the answer, or do you think the problem is still open?
It's very interesting. You mentioned people thought that they were going to take running back in the second round, and I think a lot of people thought they were. And they had a chance to. One of the big ones was still out there, J.K. Dobbins, but they chose not to take him. They chose to go wide receiver. So
I appreciate that, by the way.
Oh man, I'm so mad at the Ravens draft. God,
I'm happy.
I know it just disgusts me that they're just so good at what they do. It just really annoys me as a Steeler fan. But anyway, what it said was that they trust in James Conner and the running back group, and hopefully what they do is James Conner is very good if he's healthy, and that's the problem with him is he has trouble staying healthy. So if maybe the best solution would be to use James Conner, but not every play. Don't quote unquote run him into the ground, run the wheels off him, whatever. Use him a little bit less. Benny Snell had a good an okay rookie year last year, and hopefully he made necessary changes to his body because he was a little bit too big and slow, and so maybe he hopefully he got lost a little bit of weight, changed his body a little bit so he's a little bit quicker. So I think Connor and Benny Snell will provide a good running back tandem and do the majority of the snaps. with McFarland in the fourth round, they got a change of pace. They got a smaller guy who's fast. So it's something that they don't have, and it's something they haven't had in a while. So while Connor and Snell are thumpers, McFarland is a speedy guy. So I could see McFarland challenging Jalen Samuels for maybe third down back, something like that. So McFarland won't play much, but he might get in on that third down role.
That's right about Jalen Samuels. I almost forgot about him. Justin, what do you think about this pick, Anthony McFarland going to Pittsburgh? What role do you think he'll play there?
Well, like Joe said, he's just going to be a nice change of pace type back, a guy that can just be a perfect complement to what they already have there. If James Conner can be healthy, he definitely can be one of the best running backs in the league, if not the best. We just need to see a 100% healthy version of him. And I still think they really want to see what Benny Snell can bring. I think he's a question mark right now, but if he was able to make adjustments like Joe was talking about, he can be a good back. He was a great back in the SEC, a very tough runner. I really enjoyed watching him when he played for Kentucky, and I really had hope that he would be able to rise a little bit quicker in Pittsburgh than what he has so far. But you got a guy who's a speedster coming in, and he's a guy that you can put in on third down to maybe catch a few passes out of the backfield, maybe line him up in the slot. You can just do a lot of different things with him. But so he's a good fit in that respect. He already has familiarity with the team. He actually played with Dino Tomlin, which we know that name, don't we? And also, too, the quarterback's coach, Matt Canada, was his offensive coordinator in 2018 when he was at Maryland. To be honest with you, McFarland probably would have been drafted a little bit higher, but this past season he was hampered with an ankle injury when he suffered it against Temple in week 2, and he just never quite got back to his top form. But he trudged on, was able to go through the season. He only missed one game because of it, so he's a guy who's got a motor. He's not going to quit on you, and he's just going to trudge through whatever mess that comes his way. Definitely comes from good stock. Anthony McFarland, if that name rings a bell, it should. His father is the great Anthony McFarland, Booger McFarland, who is one of the most popular analysts for ESPN right now.
That's right.
But it's a good pick.
Good. So do you think he'll be a third string running back, or you think he's able to jump into the second, maybe first, or?
I don't see him being anything other than like a third option right now.
Right.
A guy that they can use on third down, like I said, in passing situations or special packages. But I don't think he's going to challenge for anything this year, and I don't feel like they expect him to.
Think Austin Eckler of the Chargers. It's basically what he's equivalent to. So
that's a good thing, though.
That is a good thing. If he turns out like that, we'd be very happy.
Which people are asking me, should they pick James Conner for their fantasy team? Joe?
Yes. James Conner is also another person that's high motivated to have years. It's also a contract for him, too. So, yes, so in terms of fantasy, Conner will get the most touches, maybe not as much as previous years when that's what Tomlin likes to do. Tomlin likes to give the ball to one guy and then forget about it. I mean, that's what he did with Le'Veon Bell. But this is different. You can't do that. You can't do that with Conner. He gets hurt every year. So when Conner is right, if you could just do a little bit of load management with him, you have a really good situation. I think in terms of fantasy, Conner can be productive.
Justin, do you have faith in Conner? Obviously, he didn't have, which is what Joe said. He's had injury issues. But you think do you think Conner is the man, or do you think down the road Pittsburgh might get something else?
Well, I don't think that he lacks in ability or production. I think his greatest enemy right now is just his health. If he can work on the durability concerns and can just escape this right now, which is his biggest foe, he actually is one of the best backs in the league. But if durability continues to be an issue, then you would have to think that down the line the Steelers are going to be thinking other options.
Something to definitely look at, of course, question marks. I know a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans are a Connor. They're faithful with Connor. They're not saying, get someone else, but,
I don't think anybody's bailing, ship right now on him. I think everyone's just being patient. But also, too, I think they all have a collective breath of fresh air of the guy who doesn't have drama.
There you have it. Kevin Dotson was selected at round 4, pick number 135. He's from Louisiana, guard. I want Justin to go first on that one because you're from that area. What have you heard about him, and is he a good pick for Pittsburgh?
I'm from Louisiana.
No. I mean, you're in that area. You're in Mississippi. You're right next door. But you might be more familiar with him than Joe. But
well, I mean, us Southern people, we represent everybody collectively. So, well, he played in a lesser conference, so I didn't quite see him as much as some other names. I'm an SEC guy, so that's what's going to be first and foremost in my viewing. But yeah, first of all, what's great is he grew up a Steelers fan. He is living his dream of playing for the yellow and black. So that's pretty awesome, right there.
That's a good sign, right, Joe?
Well, you definitely know the want to's there for sure.
He wants to be there.
Well, what I really like about him is he kind of reminds me of that old school type of lineman from back in the day who would just run over or through you and just would be very physical. And that's one of the things that really shows up on his tape is that he can just move people at will. Has a great lift, and he can just control what's right in front of him. He's a great interior player, but he also has flexibility. He can move to tackle, and he also has the ability, to be able to come in right away and perhaps compete for that left guard spot, as we all know, was recently vacated due to the retirement of Raymond Foster. Another good thing about him, and I think he's motivated too, is because he is actually the first non-combine player to be selected in the 2020 draft. So I thought that was a pretty interesting fact about Mr. Dotson. But the coaches like him, and they really feel like he can come in and compete right away. So they see something in the kid. He's got a tremendous upside. And like I said, the thing I liked about him the most is his physicality, and that really fits into the persona of the Steelers football culture.
Joe Tascano, what have you heard about Kevin Dotson going to Pittsburgh?
I have heard that this might be the surprise
steal
of the draft for the Steelers. Exactly.
That's good.
Yeah. It is curious that he was not invited to the combine because I believe he was an All-American. So that's a mystery. It's like, why was he not invited to the combine? But anyway, he's known for his power and agility. They call him a people mover. He's a bit of a mean guy. He was a bouncer, and another thing he would do is he would tell the defensive lineman what's coming, what play is coming, and he's basically saying, here's what's coming, you're still not going to stop it. So he's a little bit cocky too, but you gotta love something like that. But still, this could be, he's not going to contribute right away, but maybe in a year or two, he might be a starter.
Something to definitely look at. Kevin Dotson, very positive. Good pick so far. People are saying Pittsburgh had a weak draft. Anyways, let's go to round 6. 5th round, Pittsburgh was not seen. Antoine Brooks Jr. from Maryland. We'll go with Joe. What have you heard about Antoine?
Well, it's very interesting that another guy from Maryland, and you mentioned Dino Tomlin before, Mike Tomlin's son, and that Matt Canada, the new Steelers quarterbacks coach, was the offense coordinator at Maryland. So, in this crazy year where you don't have all the information because of there were no pro days and stuff like that. This is it's kind of like, it's not what it's who so they obviously they loved McFarland, and they got good intel on Brooks, and he is he's versatile. He can play safety and linebacker. And that's what they need. They need somebody that can do that. I don't expect, we're talking 6th round here, so I don't expect much from him, but if he could contribute in special teams, that would be great. But they do need a backup inside linebacker and a backup safety. So this could work nicely.
Justin, there's been talk about not having pro days were good for some players and also negative for some players. What were your thoughts about that during this whole pandemic? Did it benefit or it did not benefit players in this draft?
I honestly don't see where the benefit is in that, really. I feel like that you need tape for all these guys, or not necessarily tape. You need to be able to have that one-on-one, especially for a lot of these guys who weren't able to go to the combine because they weren't up and close and personal with these NFL teams, and without having these pro days, they weren't viewed. So it really took a huge contributor to I guess a pipeline out for these kids, and it just put them in I feel like a major disadvantage. And it really got me too is I've never been a fan of skipping the combine and then waiting to your pro day or.
Why do players do that? Is that because they're just not in shape by then, or like what do you think?
I really don't know the rationale behind it. I just I think that they try to put all their eggs in one basket. Maybe they want to continue more. That maybe they feel like at that point in time they're not quite where they need to be. Maybe they need to fine tune some areas. So they feel like having that extra time until the pro day would be more beneficial. But the only thing is, in this situation, it backfired because they didn't have the one-on-one. And I feel like that greatly hurt people. And, there were several people who were able to put together some tape, a virtual pro day. And I think that really made a difference for folks. And it gave people a leg up who normally wouldn't have got one. And
like Tua.
It just, well, yeah, definitely like Tua for sure.
You got Trent Dilfer with them, man. Can't beat that.
Well, when you have the endorsement of Trent Dilfer, where can you go wrong?
Singing praises, the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, and like Joe said too, that not having a pro day, you really had to rely on word of mouth or people who have previous experience with other players. Yeah. And for the two guys in Maryland, it really came up big just having that personal experience. But not everybody had that luxury. So this was just an odd situation completely,
Interesting situation we've never seen before. People we'll talk about that 2020 NFL draft. He'll for sure be remembered more. Let's get back into Antoine Brooks Jr. Justin, what does your research tell you?
Well, he's a good physical player, and I like guys who are going to be good and physical.
That's good, right?
Especially at the defensive back position, because tackling and physicality is just becoming a lost art these days. It's more like watching glorified flag football. But you got some guys who still are pretty old school and aren't going to be afraid to hit. This is a guy right here. Very aggressive tackler, very aggressive player, a guy who did a lot of blitzing. I like that. He's somebody, like Joe was saying, that can possibly down the road take a role similar to what Mark Barron had. Will it be this year? Not really likely. I mean, he was drafted in the 6th round, so he's going to be a little bit of a project coming up. Maybe a little fine-tuning before we can even consider seeing him in a starting role. But he has a really good feel for the game in terms of instincts, and he's not afraid of making a big decision. So he's not going to be a guy in a difficult situation where he's just kind of sitting around like a deer lost in the headlights. He's a guy who's going to take ownership of what he's doing, make a decision, he's going to commit to it. And that's very good for a young man coming into the NFL. And also, wherever the ball is, he's gonna show up. So
That's a good
he's
sign.
going to be all over the field.
That's a good sign. Joe, you hear that? That's a good sign. This was like their second Maryland player. Is there a correlation there, or they just, it just happened how it